Hello, I didn't see you there with my passive perception of 11. Now, before you go clicking off the video because of that terrible joke, keep in mind, it will become relevant in a few minutes. So, welcome to the first character journal for the Tainted Lands, Mists of Mournton, which is a D&D stream I participate in as a player. We just premiered, would have been last Monday at the time of recording, and I am Eric. I play Sir Cadrin Lorinar, the half-drow paladin, and as our, shall we say, inaugural episode, we did the classic starting in a tavern. So, we begin our journey in the Leering Star Tavern of the town of Mournton, as per the stream is named, actually. Now, our scene opened with myself, my travelling companion Lofwin, Win for short, and a number of others seated around a table at, well, it was decently late in the evening at this point. However, we were watching the, for lack of a better term, governess of the town, the Lady Deirdre, Knight of the Willows, put on, shall we call it, I don't want to call it a performance, a rite, so to speak, in the tavern. Now, this rite is the rite of pardoning. This act is taken once a year, every year, at the start of the new year as a celebration of Demarest, the judge, also known as Demarest the Maimed. You see, they are a god dedicated to both punishment and redemption, and so once a year, someone is redeemed. In this instance, it wound up being a goblin thief, which we would all later know by the name of Sweet Roll. Quaint name, to be quite honest. And, well, it was a bit of an interesting show, really, because he had somewhat of a red leash or red ribbon. I might be misremembering, but for lack of a better term, he was tied, bound. There was a bit of a collar around his throat as well. And so the Lady Deirdre went about and cut his binds. She did nick his ear a little bit, though. In fact, he came over to our table, and being a knight myself, I found it prudent to offer him my seat. There was a bit of an interesting exchange here, actually. He was talking about how he wouldn't be stealing from us, of course, and well, he was quite distraught, to be quite honest. He kept repeating about how he did not have a choice. And for a paladin of the judge myself, I informed him it was, well, we always have a choice, to be frank. Now, moving on, Sweet Roll goes on to inform the table, after some prodding from the dwarven gentleman in the priestly robes, Wallace, that, well, he was stealing because he was hoping to put together a ransom for his friend Killian. Apparently, this human man, Killian, was a bard who had gone missing recently, and that sort of caught my ear. You see, my official title is Sir Cadrin Lorinar, the Knight of the Road. I am not a landowner, so to speak, though I do function as a knight-errant, with my personal purpose, so to speak, being to keep the roads safe for travellers. And so to hear that this goblin's friend had been kidnapped by bandits on the way to Mournton through the Wailing Woods was troubling to me, and I volunteered to go out immediately, but I was quickly talked down by other members of the table. You see, upon offering a gold reward, let's say it piqued the interests of other members at the table. There was Toby, the older gnome gentleman who is a bit eccentric and very clearly a craftsman of some kind. Then there was, actually, I don't believe she introduced herself yet. Red-headed, half-elven woman. She was a bit curious as she had her nose buried in a book and appeared to be travelling with Toby, but she perked up at the mention of gold, which, well, let's just say I can't exactly approve of, but at least Wallace and I were the ones doing this out of the good of our hearts, which surprised me a bit as well, because Wallace struck me as one who is slightly unhinged, to say the least. Now, on top of that, we had Wynne, who she is, as far as I can tell with the High Elf, a fairly young High Elf, and fairly new to this travelling business. In fact, she found me passed out on the road from a crossbow bolt in the kidney, I believe it was. And so she used some of her medical knowledge to patch me up, and we had travelled together since. And upon hearing of this Killian being kidnapped, I quickly informed Wynne that unfortunately I would not be able to travel with her any further, as I would have to deal with this issue. Now, Wynne was kind enough to volunteer to come along, actually, and she saw it as more community business to deal with bandits on the road, which was quite kind of her, to be quite honest. And so, after some discussion, we all decided to set out in the morning. Sweetroll was kind enough to inform us of the place where Killian was taken, and was even kind enough to accompany us. Toby was also doubling as a local guide, as apparently he is quite familiar with the area. Now, as we were moving along, we exited the town of Mournton in the morning. I bought breakfast for everyone, because a good breakfast is absolutely necessary to start the day. And upon the way, we stumbled across a bit of an odd occurrence. And it was our first time actually fighting together as well. You see, we heard a scream from over one of the hills, and it wound up being a child and their parents who were being attacked by wolves, of all things. Now, these wolves appeared to have come out of the Wailing Wood, which is, as many would know, quite odd, because creatures like that, they don't usually attack people unless they are scared or hungry. And we quickly discovered that it was the latter more than the former, unfortunately, as these were very emaciated. One was even missing a leg. And so I, being me, I couldn't pass up the chance at a bit of glory in the morning. So I ran right in, and luckily I had Wallace right on my heels, which was another unexpected occurrence, to be frank. I didn't anticipate him to be so ready to run headlong into a problem. For me, it's sort of a job. For him, it's an option, I guess you could say. But anyways, I drew my shield, I drew my spear, and I held them off while the rest of the group managed to, for the most part, dispatch them. I was focused on defending the child and his parents, taking more of a protective role, trying to draw the wolves' attention, and even managed to slay one myself, while the others dealt with the rest of the pack. Now, the mother of the child was kind enough to give us a gift of some sort of potion that Wallace pocketed, and I was fortunate enough to have kept some bacon for my breakfast to keep the young boy from crying. Young boy, young girl, I actually can't remember, to be honest. I don't think it was mentioned. Well, they were ruddy enough that we couldn't really tell based on all the dirt, to be honest. Could also just be my poor memory. Now that said, we very quickly moved on to the woods. And it took us a while to reach the woods after exiting the town, but luckily we managed to reach them along the main road without any further issues. We came upon a pair of distinct and sort of twisted trees that were apparently the area in which Killian was taken, and between these trees tread a small trail. Luckily, I have some ability to produce light, and the area was getting quite foggy, so I sent my 4 sort of borealis globes ahead of me, and was able to light our way and give people a beacon or a marker to see where we were headed. And I did what was probably not the smartest idea. Along the way out, I forgot to mention, I'm not very good with traps. And this was proven by the fact that I stepped squarely into a bear trap, and luckily I did not lose my leg. However, it was quite painful. I was able to heal myself a little bit, but other than that, it was not exactly fun. However, moving on. We start walking this trail, and I have suggested at this point to the group that they fan out into the woods and use my lights as a beacon or an idea of where to go, because I plan to use myself as bait. Fantastic idea, that, but considering I was the least likely to sneak through anywhere in existence, I thought it might be more appropriate for me to draw attention away from the rest of the group. So I set myself at a pace of about 20 feet ahead of them, to still be within sight and within reach if necessary, but not so far away that things could happen without them knowing, or that I would be out of eyesight, so to speak. And we moved on. There were a couple of trials along the way. We had some trouble scaling a cliff. I went up at the bottom of the pile on that and nearly sprained my shield arm, but I was okay after a bit. Toby, however, unfortunately faced quite a bit of possible damage to his hip, and so I carried him around for a bit, and we ended the day's adventures at a very odd tree. This tree was twisted, large, in the center of a clearing of some sort, and had what appeared to be a face carved into the trunk. And not only that, but the face was filled with this sort of odd blood-red sap. And while I had some inclination as to this being a symbol of a cult, I could not quite place what cult or what activity it would be a part of, unfortunately. And so we ended our investigations for the day underneath the branches of the twisted tree, and attempting to find another trail or another hint to see where these bandits might have gone. Just a few comments on my traveling companions. As I said, the red-headed elf, half-elf woman, she strikes me as a bit educated but mercenary in behavior. She seems interested only in her books and in her money, so far. She also nearly took my head off with an axe, but that's beside the point. Wallace is ephemeral, a bit mercurial, really, in behavior. One minute he seems very threatening, the next he seems very kind, almost polite. He also has a habit of playing bone pipes late at night, which, honestly, when we're hunting bandits, not the best idea. Then there's Toby, the odd known gentleman. His magic is unlike something I've ever seen as well. I'll have to ask him about that. Carries around an odd device for tracking time as well. Be interested to ask him a few questions. And then there's Wynne, my former travelling companion. Very polite, very kind, but a bit quiet in nature, as though she's still currently trying to find her way. Which is understandable for a traveller such as herself. We both come from the town of Black Sands, so hopefully we'll be able to possibly reminisce together a bit about what home is like as things go on. Now, I want to say thank you for listening to this character journal, this in-character character journal, and hopefully we will see you all on Monday for our next stream, where we move on from the Twisted Tree and hopefully find some bandits. It's going to be fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying the show.